Does your partner want more or less sex than you? Hi, I'm Dr. Marianne Brandon, and I am here with my husband.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Abraham Morgentaler, and we are the Sex Doctors. So, Dr. Brandon, great to see you.
You too?
So, do you or your partner want more sex, one over the other?
You know, it's such a common problem. When
Yep.
you think about it, just about everybody would say somebody wants more sex than the other person.
Wait a second, are you telling me that it's not matched perfectly for a whole relationship over many years?
Dr. Morgentaler.
Right, so there's always one partner that wants it more and one partner that wants it less.
For
Although
sure.
that can probably change depending on circumstances and over the years.
So here's the thing, too, is that just because it's so common, it doesn't mean it's easy to solve. It
Right.
can be hugely challenging for couples, even though it's so common,
Yeah.
to manage this issue.
Before we start, a small disclaimer. The Sex Doctors podcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice.
Welcome to the Sex Doctors, featuring Dr. Marianne Brandon, clinical psychologist and diplomate in sex therapy, and Dr. Abraham Morgentaler, renowned urologist and expert in sexual medicine and testosterone therapy. Together, they bring you expert insights into sex, intimacy, and relationships. Let's dive in.
Yeah, sex is very difficult to negotiate for couples.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Like, everybody gets defensive. Everybody gets worried about offending the other person. And people also feel awkward about even trying to get their own needs met.
It's true. And people make meaning out of this.
Yeah.
So, like, if they're the higher desire partner and their partner wants less sex, they're like, I hear this all the time. I think my partner's having an affair. They don't want as much sex as I do.
Right.
They think that. Or they think their partner doesn't love them, which is really sad.
Yeah.
They make this huge meaning out of it. Or the lower desire partner will feel like maybe I'm with the wrong person.
Yeah.
Like stuff like this. Big deal.
Brains are wired to make meaning often when there's none there.
Isn't that right?
If you call somebody or you send them an email and they don't respond for a few days, like the brain goes, are they angry at me? Whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And usually the answer is like they're out of town or something.
Or it went to spam.
Or it went to spam. Right.
Right.
Yeah. But so that's what happens.
It is. It is. So, when I have a couple that is struggling with desire discrepancy, well, first of all, what I want to do is help them understand that the other person's experience is challenging,
Good.
right? So it's uncomfortable physically to have sex you don't want to have, or to not have sex that you want to have.
Right.
That's uncomfortable.
Right. Now, when I hang out with guys,
Yeah.
which I do,
Yes.
it's a common complaint the guys will have. And they say, my wife, my girlfriend, she doesn't want to have sex as much as me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like there's a complaint, like, it's not going well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that's the direction that it always is, where it's the guy that wants more than the woman, although that's the stereotype.
Yeah.
Right?
It is a stereotype.
The guys are always ready to go.
Right.
A stiff breeze is enough to get them interested. Now, that's also not true and creates problems for guys.
Yes.
Who, once you're past your early to mid 20s, guys don't want sex necessarily all the time. The situation has to be more and more perfect, especially as we get older into our 40s and 50s and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So this goes both ways.
Yeah.
And it can change in a relationship over time too. So
Right. So how do you handle it when a couple comes to you with that issue?
Well, you know what? There are things I make sure I discuss. So of course there are issues that are unique to everybody. But so first of all, like with the higher desire partner, one of the first things we talk about is how to experience some sexual satisfaction on their own, like how to make masturbation interesting, so that they can kind of like take some of the pressure off the lower desire partner. And you know what? Sex tech is coming up with all kinds of interesting ways to approach this issue. So modern sex tech is like making life much more simple for people with desire discrepancy.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Can you give us examples of how sex tech is helping?
Well, so it gives people so many more options together and separate. So just like the sex toys that are available today are so different than even toys that were available 5 years ago. Like really things are changing dramatically. So it gives people options for masturbating that are a little more interesting than they used to be, whether it be like a sex toy or something they're watching on VR porn or whatever. So it gives people themselves different interesting things to do, but also things for the couple that don't stress the lower desire partner. So, like, I don't know, taking even sex tech aside, I, I invite people to be creative. Like, can you masturbate your partner? Can your partner masturbate while you hold them? Like there's a lot of creative things that people can do that don't include actual intercourse that also need to be discussed.
Right. The now when you talk about sex toys, I think most guys have it in their mind that those are vibrators and that they're for women,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Are there sex toys for men?
Many kinds of sex toys for men. So all you have to do is go on your typical, whatever general site you buy your stuff at, and they're going to have sex toys now.
People should have a website to go to.
Well, like, doesn't everybody go to Amazon.com? It's like,
Wait,
I
Amazon?
buy everything.
Amazon has this stuff?
Oh my God. If you go to Amazon.com and you type in sex toys for men, you're going to get all kinds of options. You're going to get everything from like sex toys that they used to be called fleshlights, but they have so many now that like they're called all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But they're these like things that you literally put your penis in and they move in certain ways. So they're supposed to replicate either a vagina or an anus. Like you're supposed to feel like what the human body feels like.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say that on occasion, guys will say, no way I'm putting my package into that thing. Like, all right, okay.
Now I can say, purely on a professional basis,
Yes.
that I'm aware of some of these toys.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that they necessarily replicate exactly what it feels like for genital intercourse. Some of them go way beyond.
Okay, good point.
Right?
Meaning what?
Meaning that most women don't have a vibrating vagina.
This is a very valid point you're making.
Yeah. So, so it can reproduce the feeling, some of them, where it's more or less a receptacle, and there are others that have all sorts of added features, right?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
So that gives people all kinds of opportunities to have some exciting alone time.
Right.
Right.
So, but I don't think you're saying that the answer to what we might call desire discrepancy is just that the partner that wants it more just masturbates.
No, not at all. But that's just one of the things that needs to be discussed so that the higher desire partner doesn't feel like so left out and not taken care of.
Right.
Right.
But one of the, and I know the male side of this better than the female, but a lot of the guys who are feeling like their female partner isn't as into it as they are, doesn't want it as often as they're already masturbating, and they're not. That's not satisfying for them. They want to be able to have sex with their partner.
Fair enough. So I do then want to go back to the concept of what the two can do together.
Yeah.
That might stress the lower desire partner a little less.
Yeah.
But allow them to have a close connection.
Good.
So, oftentimes it's more about like eye contact and connection and being engaged than actually for heterosexual sex, a vagina and a penis.
Yeah.
So if it's about holding each other and one person is touching the penis, whether it be the penis owner or the vagina owner, if someone's touching them, but they're connected in the process, that can be a very intimate experience.
Sure.
So thinking along those lines, like people can rub their genitals against the other person without ever even touching their other, like their hands, right? And that can be a very engaging experience. People could watch porn together. And then, like, the lower desire partner can hold the higher desire partner while the higher desire partner masturbates. Like, this goes on because of all the new sex toys out there. There are just
Right.
different ways to do this kind of thing.
Right.
So that's an important piece. But also, I talked to the higher desire partner about how to seduce the lower desire
Oh,
partner.
this sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to hear about this.
Well, it's important because what happens by the time they're in my office, they've been dealing with this for years.
Yeah.
It's very unpleasant. And people start to get just very sort of like they negotiate this in a very unengaging way. Like they'll say, "Do you want to have sex tonight?" And the other one's like, "All right." Like, this is really not sounding
It's
good.
not, that's not sexy. It's not romantic.
Right.
Right. And the guys have now been socialized, despite the stereotype where they're all in it for themselves. The guys have been acculturated, so they don't want to have sex with somebody who doesn't want to have sex with them.
Right. For
They
sure.
want engagement.
For sure.
They want a sense of interest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what I invite them to do, the higher desire partner, whoever they are, male, female, whatever,
Yeah.
is bring back the seduction, the game, the fun of it.
Yeah.
Now, that's easier said than done because seducing feels vulnerable. The higher desire partner is tired of being rejected.
Right.
Now I'm saying to them, show up and be sexy and engage your partner and start to make them like want to come close.
Yeah.
Right? Hard to do, but a necessary part of this. If you're going to bring like the dance back, the fun back of the dance.
Yeah.
So
Rejection, especially sexual rejection,
it's
is
rough.
brutal.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's like you're being rejected for your most vulnerable. That's not simple.
Exactly.
Very not
Exactly.
simple.
Yeah.
But this is about then, finding out from the lower desire partner, how do you like to be seduced? Like what's fun? What's engaging? So sometimes it takes a while for the lower desire partner to think it through. It's not always so simple, but you can always find something. So sometimes it's what the lower desire partner say, well, I'd like it when my partner wears this. I like it when we listen to music first. I like it when, that my partner touches my back and starts to rub me. There's stuff in the seduction. So you got to figure that out.
Yeah. And I would imagine that one of the challenges is just hard for people to talk about this, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And, my sense from having talked to my patients over the years is that there's a resentment that builds up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where the guy feels like he's done everything that he can. There used to be an old line, around sexuality, at least in medical circles, that the way for a guy to get laid by his partner was to take out the garbage that he needed. He needed to show up more around the house, do something with the kids or whatever else.
Yeah.
But, and I've had conversations with the guys where they say, I do all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still, my partner is still not interested.
Right.
And then they feel used. They feel like the contract, if you will, unofficial marriage contract or relationship contract has been violated by their partner. The other partner isn't showing up and they're doing everything they can to be a great partner.
Yeah.
Now, whenever I say something like that, there always are people who hear it, and especially women. They say, "Oh, I have my male partner. He doesn't do anything, or he's all he cares about is himself." But I'm sure that's true, right? There's many different variations on how relationships work, as there are couples,
right?
But the hard one for me to hear is when the guys have done everything that they know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to be sexual with their partner. Of course they do. And when when the partner says, "Oh, all you want is sex all the time. Why are you so obsessed with sex?"
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with that?
Well, I would say that one of the things that I think is really important in working with a couple who are struggling with desire discrepancy. And I want to highlight it is not always the female that has the lower desire.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, one of the really important pieces of the puzzle, I think, is to talk to the lower desire partner to realize what's in it for them to have sex. Because if they've decided sex isn't worth it, we've got problems.
Mm.
So there's always something in it for them, but they just have to figure that out. Now, sometimes what's in it for them is reconnecting with a part of their body that they're disconnected from. So their sexual energy, like that's valuable to connect to a part of themselves that they've lost.
Right.
Sometimes what's in it for them is to feel the emotional connection of making love. In which case we talk about how to make love because that's its own unique thing. All sex isn't making love. So we talk about what's in it for them is to feel connected and make love again. Or maybe what's in it for them is for having some really cool orgasm and they need to sort of like relearn how to do that. Sometimes with age and hormonal shifts, you can lose that ability to make love or to have sex and have it be intense. But I got to say, sometimes it's important you get benefit from pleasing your partner. And there's a book I love called The 5 Love Languages. I can't remember the author, but it's a very popular book. I'm sure you've heard of it before. So it's a very basic book, easy to read, where people determine, how do they feel love? And for some people, it's really true. They feel love through sex.
Yeah.
Now, we know that it's in everyone's best interest if your partner feels loved. Then your partner makes you feel more loved. Then you have a stronger connection,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So it's important for the lower desire partner to see what's in it for them to have sex. They've got to figure that out. If only that it's in it for them to make their partner feel good. That's a fine reason, but they've got to figure it out. So in the circumstance you're describing, that is something definitely I will discuss.
Yeah. I think in some of the circumstances that I hear about, I'm not certain that the lower desire partner, well, I'm usually hearing it from the guys, not from the women. So where the women sometimes, I think they don't even like their partner anymore.
Which is a whole other issue, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
Definitely worth our time, but we're not going to sort that one.
Oh, we're not handling that today.
No, we're not.
So the title of that one will be What to Do If Your Partner Really Doesn't Like You.
Yeah.
That's a different topic.
That's a different topic.
Okay, now we're talking about desire discrepancy, really where the partners actually do care for each other.
Yes.
Right? But
Right.
the amount of sex they want is different.
Absolutely.
The frequency.
Absolutely. And you know what else I say to what?
Just relationships are hard.
Oh, they're hard. Yeah. They're challenging.
Yeah.
Right. But we're here to help.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we do.
The sex doctors are on call right now.
Right. Exactly. So let me add one more thing.
Yeah.
And that is with the lower desire partner, we talked about how things can get transactional and the conversation is, do you want to have sex tonight? And then somebody says, I don't know, or okay, right? Not sexy.
Right.
Like who's looking forward to that?
Right.
So with the lower desire partner, we talk about the fact that they're not always going to want sex. Absolutely not. But you've got to learn to say no in a respectful, loving way and bring back a dialogue that feels good and recognize that the truth of the matter is it's a gift to be wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't want to be rude about it. You want to be grateful that you're wanted. Doesn't mean you have to want sex all the time, but still recognize that it's a gift when someone wants you. So what can happen for people is when the couples, in my opinion, that really struggle are when people stop initiating altogether. And then the lower desire partner is begging the higher desire partner to engage and to invite them for sex.
Yeah.
That's harder
Yeah.
when you're not wanted.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that point.
Yeah.
Right? So I think a lot of times people take it for granted that their partner wants to have sex with them.
Yeah.
But it's a disaster when the partner doesn't want to have sex with you.
It is.
And that can happen in both directions.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So the one who's been less desire might shut it down altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Or the guy with the greater desire says, this is a dead end for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Where do we go? You've spoken about something with me. I don't know if we've spoken about in our podcast, but you've talked about how valuable it can be to schedule sex. And I wonder if you could say something about it. But if I just want to throw in that, when we start with relationships, for the most part, sexual desire is not a problem, right? Everybody's into it. It's usually how relationships start, in fact, around early sexuality. Um, and and there's this idea, and I hear it all the time, especially from my guys who have erectile dysfunction,
Yeah.
where they have to do something or time something.
Yeah.
The pills around Viagra, Cialis, Stendra, you have to do it before, take it before meals, right? Because the meals can get in the way.
Yeah.
So you want it on an empty stomach. It usually lasts for 4 to 6 hours where you've got a window of opportunity. And the common complaint is, I don't want to have to plan sex. Or what the guys say is, I'm okay with it, but my wife says that this should be spontaneous.
Right. People always say that to me, frankly, when I suggest scheduling sex. They like spontaneous sex.
Yeah, so talk about that.
So this is actually one of my favorite interventions, to have people schedule sex. But the thing about spontaneous sex, one point to consider is, even if people think it's spontaneous, it's probably not. At the beginning of a relationship, even, people are just sort of revved up and excited. It doesn't mean they suddenly want sex. They're kind of like in this groove of wanting sex all the time. So it's actually not even necessarily spontaneous there. But let's kind of go with this concept of spontaneous sex. What happens is the lower desire partner doesn't have enough opportunity to get themselves in the right physical and emotional place to have a good sexual experience. And scheduling sex allows for that. So inevitably,
Explain that.
so if people are scheduling sex, then the lower desire partner has the opportunity to get themselves in the mood. They can masturbate a little bit. They don't overeat, so they're not too full. They can save enough energy at the end of the day to have the energy for sex. They have opportunity to plan, what do they want to wear, what do they want to do, and give themselves basically time to create an experience that's going to be exciting for them and their partner.
Right.
So it's super valuable to schedule it.
Yeah. And for the guys who are 50 plus and older, who a very high percentage of are now taking advantage of the pills like Viagra, Cialis, or penile injections if they really got a lot of ED, it also gives them a chance to plan that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, when it's not planned, people start trying to read each other. Like, is my partner into it tonight or not? And it becomes very complicated in people's minds, and they're not discussing it. So if it's planned, you can just not worry about any of that stuff. I have people decide, you're going to have sex once a week, twice a week, whatever. Pick the night it's going to happen. And then they can avoid all that. Are they into it? Are they not? Blah, blah, blah. And people can sort of take whatever time they need to get themselves in the right headspace, physical space. Tends to go really well. So honestly, almost all the time, people will say, I really prefer to schedule sex. I say, try it this way. Let me know. They come back after trying it for a month or whatever. They're like, I totally get it. I'm in. So scheduling sex is great.
It's kind of like scheduling date night.
Yeah, it is like that.
As a matter of fact, it can happen together with date night.
It sure can. It sure can.
Yeah. So I think this is great.
Yeah, well, it's very helpful for people. And, of course, sex has to be worth wanting, and that's not for us to discuss today, but you're not going to want boring sex or bad sex. So you have to also, everybody's kind of got to take responsibility for being an engaging, involved sex partner. And we could talk about that another time, but that's important too. You can't expect people to want boring or bad sex.
Dr. Brandon, this was so helpful.
Well, I think it does help a lot of people, frankly.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. So thus ends another episode of The Sex Doctors. If you like this content, please give us a thumbs up, write us a review. and subscribe.
Yeah.
And we hope to see you back for another podcast.
We look forward to it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The Sex Doctors with Dr. Marianne Brandon and Dr. Abraham Morgentaler. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tune in next time for more expert advice on sexual health and relationships.
I believe in miracles. Where from? You sexy thing, you. I believe in miracles. Since you came along.